Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to the channel. At UFC Vegas 45, Belal Muhammad got a massive win over Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, and people have asked me to make a video, what's next for Belal Muhammad? And I was going to make that video, but then I was looking over the welterweight division and I realized basically nobody right now has a fight. So this video is going to be every fight to make in the welterweight division, and I have some great matchups. I mean, you can't go wrong. You could literally pick names out of a hat to match some of these guys up, and there's nothing but amazing fights within the welterweight division. And really, with my potential matchups, I've been complaining for a while that the top ranked at welterweight do not want to fight each other. It just seems like Usman's the only guy fighting top ranked competition at welterweight. But with this potential matchmaking, we're finally going to end that and have some elite world-class top 5 guys facing off against each other. So the first matchup obviously is for Kamar Usman, the champion. Kamar Usman had a massive 2021, 3 title defenses against 3 great names. TKO's Gilbert Burns back in February in a fight that he faced adversity, hurt badly in the first round. Then he goes on to rematch Jorge Masvidal. There was all that talk that Jorge Masvidal stepped in on short notice, at UFC 251, and that was his excuse for why he got decision 50-45 by Kamar Usman. But he gets the rematch, and Kamar Usman goes out there and sleeps him. Nasty right hand, puts him out cold, and that's a huge win as well. And then he goes on to fight Colby Covington, defeats him by decision. I thought it was clear-cut. There was some controversy. Other people were saying they thought maybe that Colby Covington won that fight, but I did not think he won that fight. Either way, Kamar Usman should fight Leon Edwards next. I think that's the fight that just makes the most sense. And I know we can complain and we can say Leon Edwards doesn't have the best names on his resume. He just hasn't fought the elite of the elite within the division. But it's really not his fault. He was supposed to fight Woodley after Woodley came off one loss and lost his belt to Usman. He got pulled from that fight from no fault to his own. Then he accepted the fight against Khamzat Chimaev 3 times. Khamzat Chimaev, people, he may have not been ranked at that time, but everyone and people are still saying that Khamzat Chimaev was an absolute killer. Leon Edwards accepted that fight 3 times over. Khamzat Chimaev pulled out 2 of the 3 times. The UFC was desperate to rebook that, but unfortunately it didn't happen. Then people were saying, well, Leon still got to fight a top guy, and he accepted a fight with Jorge Masvidal. Jorge Masvidal pulled out. So I don't blame Leon Edwards. I'd love to see this rematch. They fought before. Usman won, but it was a competitive fight. And if Leon Edwards can keep that fight on the feet, I think he has a very high probability of beating Usman. But I've said that a million times. If you can keep the fight on the feet with Usman, you have a decent chance to win the fight. So I'd love to see him do that rematch. I think it makes the most sense considering basically everyone else in the division has already fought Kamar Usman and lost, some of them twice already. So Leon Edwards, let's do Kamar Usman versus Leon Edwards 2. Moving on to Colby Covington, who's currently ranked number 1. I think this is the fight that is an absolute no-brainer, and that is Colby Covington versus Jorge Masvidal. This fight has been talked about forever. They're former best friends. Supposedly, they no longer like each other. There's been that storyline building for what seems like forever. I think that the beef is a little bit fake, and I think one of them was waiting for the other to become champion. Then they could fight over a belt, and the fight would be all that much bigger. But now that they both lost to Kamar Usman twice, not once, but twice, I think it's now or never for that fight. It makes perfect sense. They're both coming off a loss to Kamar Usman. Jorge Masvidal has not won a fight since he beat Nate Diaz back in 2019. He has 2 losses to Kamar Usman since then. Colby Covington, and this is crazy, and I've talked about this before, but I respect Colby Covington's abilities. He doesn't have the greatest resume either. What's his best win? Tyron Woodley? I mean, that hasn't aged very well, and I know that's easy to say, but at that point, I think Tyron Woodley had already been beaten down twice. Colby goes out there and beats him, and it wasn't even all that impressive. It would have went to decision if Woodley hadn't injured his rib, and I know Colby was responsible for that, but still, I think that Colby needs to beat somebody in the top 10 to really get some respect and potentially angle for that trilogy against Kamar Usman. I know he's lost 2 of them, but they've been competitive, so I really think if he wants to start heading back towards that trilogy fight with Kamar Usman, I think it's a great way to start by fighting Jorge Masvidal, who's currently ranked, I believe it's number 6 right now. Yes, it is number 6. I think that would be a great matchup. And also, I think stylistically, Colby Covington has a massive advantage over Jorge Masvidal. Jorge Masvidal's weakness has always been the defensive grappling. So if Colby can go out there, take him down, beat him up, like a lot of people think he will, I think I think this fight's competitive. I think Jorge Masvidal has a chance. I favor Colby, but I think this is a stylistic friendly matchup for Colby Covington and would be a massive win considering Jorge Masvidal has become a huge star since defeating Ben Askren by flying knee. So next on the list, we have Gilbert Burns, and I think this is a super fun fight. Gilbert Burns versus Khamzat Chimaev. Currently, Gilbert Burns is ranked number 2. Khamzat Chimaev is ranked number 11. You can really match up Khamzat Chimaev with anyone in the top 10, and it would be fun. But this is the fight that I personally want. If the UFC wants to get Khamzat Chimaev to a title, and he beats Gilbert Burns, who I believe is the toughest guy in the division other than Kamar Usman, and stylistically, it is such a fun matchup because Khamzat Chimaev wants to come out there, take you down, beat you up on the ground, but Gilbert Burns has amazing jiu-jitsu. And then also, if it stays standing, I'm curious who has the better striking because Khamzat Chimaev's striking looks very, very good, and Gilbert Burns, we know he has very good striking, and he also has great stamina. It's just both guys are very well-rounded. Khamzat Chimaev finally got that great win over Jingliang. That was a nice test to his career, but still, I want to see him tested against the elite of the elite. And I think if the UFC, which they've shown by booking the Leon Edwards fight 3 times over, if they want to move Khamzat Chimaev towards a title shot, a win over Gilbert Burns and Khamzat Chimaev is next in line. I mean, how could you deny him at that point? And the guy seems to want any possible fight. I don't buy this narrative that the UFC is saying, you know, nobody wants to fight Khamzat. We've seen multiple people call him out. Whether they're like that behind the scenes or not, it's hard to say. But I believe Gilbert Burns will take this fight. He's a guy that's always been seeming to willing to fight absolutely anyone, and I think he would take on Khamzat Chimaev. And I think the benefit outweighs the risk. I know Khamzat Chimaev is currently ranked outside the top 10, but Khamzat Chimaev is a massive name. And if Gilbert Burns can go out there and beat him, I think Gilbert Burns could have a claim to a potential rematch against Kamar Usman, and they could kind of sell that fact that he hurt Usman badly in their original fight. Right now, it's a little bit weird because Khamzat Chimaev obviously hasn't lost within the UFC. Gilbert Burns coming off 1 win over Wonderboy Thompson. Before that, he lost to Usman. But again, that's not the worst loss to have on your resume. So I think this fight makes perfect sense. And I think it's a little bit strange because the UFC wants Khamzat to fight for a belt. And if Burns wins, he's only on a 2-fight win streak since fighting Usman. But we've seen them give Colby Covington a rematch after 1 fight, since the loss to Usman. So I think they could do the same with Gilbert Burns. But it is a very tough stylistic match for Khamzat Chimaev, but I would absolutely love to see this fight. Next up, we have Vicente Luque ranked at number 4. I want the UFC to book Vicente Luque versus Belal Muhammad. I think this fight makes perfect sense. They're currently ranked number 4 and number 5. And Vicente Luque has a KO win over Belal Muhammad from back in 2016. So this makes perfect sense. Belal Muhammad can try to avenge his loss from Vicente Luque from back in 2016. And Belal Muhammad's on a trajectory towards a title shot. I know he's already calling for a title shot. I don't think he's currently deserving of it. You know, he only has his 2 biggest wins are Damian Maia and Wonderboy Thompson. And I don't want to discredit the Wonderboy Thompson fight because I actually picked against him. I thought Wonderboy would beat him. But I think the narrative, and also it's partially true, the regression of Wonderboy Thompson. Wonderboy's getting up there in age. He's consistently being out-grappled. So it diminishes the win a little bit. I still think it's a very solid win regardless of the state of Wonderboy. But I just want to see Belal get 1 or 2 more big wins within the division, and then he can fight for a title. I mean, honestly, if he can go out there and starch a guy like Vicente Luque or really dominate a guy like Vicente Luque, I think he's right up there for a title shot, honestly. And to avenge a loss, I think he would love that fight. And it makes perfect sense as far as the UFC rankings. Vicente Luque is currently on a 4-fight win streak, and it's a very good 4-fight win streak. He has a nasty submission win over Tyron Woodley in a crazy fight. And then he most recently submitted Michael Chiesa at UFC 265. And it's an interesting matchup with Belal Muhammad because Michael Chiesa has a very similar style to Belal Muhammad. He wants to take you down, hold you down, grapple you, dominate you on the ground. But Vicente Luque's shown he has very tricky jiu-jitsu skills and very good submission skills. So I would love to see the UFC book this fight. And then whoever wins that fight is right there for a potential next title shot. Honestly, they could even get it depending on what's going on with the rest of the division and how Kamar Usman versus Leon shakes out, how Gilbert Burns versus Khamzat Chimaev shakes out. But the winner of this fight would be in a very good position. And I think as far as fan-friendly fights, I would love to see this fight. Vicente Luque, has he ever been in a boring fight, honestly? And Belal Muhammad, while he's been a little bit boring in the past, he had a massive win over Wonderboy and was dominating him. And Wonderboy has a win over Vicente Luque. And I know MMA math doesn't always work like that, but either way, I think stylistically this is an amazing matchup. So moving down the list, next on the list, because I'm going to skip Belal Muhammad. Obviously, I just gave him a matchup. I'm going to skip Jorge Masvidal. Already gave him a matchup. So number 7 is Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Wonderboy Thompson is in a bad spot right now. I mean, he's already an advanced age. He is 36 years old. That's pretty old for MMA in general. Not the oldest guy within the UFC. We have guys like Glover Teixeira claiming belts this year. So it's not the worst age to be, but he's currently on a 2-fight losing streak, and he's only won 2 out of his last 6. He lost to Darren Till, which he shouldn't have really lost that decision. He should have got the win. Lost to Anthony Pettis via KO. Then he beat Vicente Luque, absolutely outclassed him. Then he beat Geoff Neal, outclassed him as well via decision. Then he lost to Gilbert Burns, was dominated via the grappling, and then dominated via Belal Muhammad via grappling as well. So I think the most logical fight for Wonderboy Thompson would be to fight number 8, Neil Magny. Neil Magny's always looking for a fight. He's willing to fight anyone. He's super well-rounded. And I think Neil Magny has the grappling skills to give Wonderboy trouble. And if Wonderboy can't defend takedowns against Neil Magny, he's never going to have success in the welterweight division. I've already lost all hope for Wonderboy, especially considering the way he's losing. And you look at the welterweight division, and it's the most grappling heavy division. You have Usman, you have Colby, you have Gilbert, you have Hamza, Belal. Look at all these names, and what do they all want to do? They want to clinch you up, they want to take you down, and they want to beat you up. Wonderboy wants to stay out in the open and strike with you. And, you know, if Wonderboy can't go out there and defend takedowns off of Neil Magny, who has decent wrestling, but Neil Magny's nowhere near the grappler of some of those other guys that I've mentioned. Neil Magny's been out-grappled by Michael Kiesa just this year, January of this year. So if Wonderboy can't go out there and stuff takedowns, I think it's time for Wonderboy maybe to move on to another organization, which I hate to say because I love to see Wonderboy fight. But if he can't beat Neil Magny, he's done with the elite of the welterweight division. And I know he's been talking about a potential Kamar Usman shot. That's never going to happen at this point. Too many losses. But with the repetitiveness of the welterweight division, you know, considering Usman's just beating everyone over and over and over again, giving everyone rematches, if Wonderboy could string a couple wins together, which I just don't see how it's possible considering the level of grapplers within the division, Wonderboy has a name value. They could potentially give him a title shot, but I have a hard time believing that. But I think this makes perfect sense. Neil Magny's on a 1-fight winning streak, has a win over Geoff Neal. Wonderboy's on a 2-fight losing streak, but he has a win over Geoff Neal, and Vicente Luque, his last 2 wins were that. And I just think it makes perfect sense as far as the rankings. And Neil Magny is looking for a big fight. And if he beats Wonderboy, Neil Magny can make that push towards, you know, the elite of the elite. I don't know if he's ever going to get there either. But again, I think this makes perfect sense. So moving down the rankings, next we have Sean Brady ranked at number 9. And this was kind of a hard, fight to make for him because Sean Brady deserves a big fight next. But everyone else, now that I've gone through these matchups, everyone else is kind of matched up. And Sean Brady's coming in. He's undefeated. He has that big win over Michael Chiesa where it was a very close fight. I think if it was a 5-round fight, Michael Chiesa might have won. Brady started to fade in the 3rd round. And I just think the most logical matchup for Sean Brady next is going to be Geoff Neal. Geoff Neal's coming in off a win over Santiago Ponzinibbio, a controversial one. A lot of people thought Ponzinibio won. But just based on there's no one else available, I think it's, Sean Brady versus Geoff Neal is the fight to make. That's a good matchup for Sean Brady. I think he wins that fight. Geoff Neal is only on a 1-fight winning streak. And if he would have lost the decision to Santiago Ponzinibbio, he'd be on a 3-fight losing streak. But again, there's just no one else for him to fight if you have all the other matchups that I made. And Geoff Neal is the best possible option right now. And I just think that fight would be a lot of fun. Geoff Neal at one point was the up-and-coming prospect that a lot of people felt could be a potential champion one day, or at least a champion or a title contender one day. And Sean Brady's kind of taken that place now. That's him. You know, people think Sean Brady can be a title contender at one point, or maybe even a champion at one point. And Geoff Neal is getting up there in age. You know, he barely squeaks by a win over Santiago Ponzinibbio. And if he can't beat Sean Brady, then I think it's time for Geoff Neal to really move on and you know, maybe just be a gatekeeper for the welterweight division, or maybe move on to another organization, because he's getting up there in age. He's losing to people that, you know, like Neil Magny and Wonderboy Thompson, who are on declines themselves. So I think Sean Brady can go out there, put on another big performance, grow his star power a little bit, and then move on to a very big fight after that, after some of those other matchups kind of play out. So next in the rankings is number 10, Michael Chiesa. Michael Chiesa's on a 2-fight losing streak. He lost to Vicente Luque in a fight that he looked very, very good. He went out there and was taking Vicente Luque down, controlling him on the ground. There was a slip up. He ended up getting Darce choked. You know, I think he just made a mistake, and Vicente Luque is just so good. You can't make those types of mistakes and leave your neck exposed like against a guy like Vicente Luque. Gets Darce choked, then he goes on to lose to Sean Brady. Lost the first 2 rounds, was out-grappled. Then the third round, as Sean Brady started to wear down, Michael Chiesa really started to take over. And I think if it would have been a 5-round fight, Michael Chiesa would have won that fight. So Michael Chiesa's not in the worst spot. Also, we know what his strengths are. It's his grappling. And the division is grappling heavy, so Michael Chiesa could make a push back up. I think they should make Michael Chiesa versus Santiago Ponzinibbio. I think Santiago Ponzinibbio arguably won the fight against Geoff Neal. Santiago Ponzinibbio is currently ranked number 14 in the division, but they're both coming off losses. Ponzinibbio coming off that Geoff Neal loss, while Michael Chiesa is coming off 2 losses to Sean Brady and Vicente Luque. Stylistically, I love the matchup. Striker versus grappler. We know what Chiesa wants to do. He wants to come in and take Santiago Ponzinibbio down. Ponzinibbio wants to keep the fight standing, strike with him. And I think if Ponzinibbio can keep it on the feet, I think he finishes Michael Chiesa. These are obviously early predictions. I may change my mind, but I'm just trying to give you guys a little bit of thoughts as far as these matchups. But Ponzinibbio, we know he's super durable. We know that, you know, as the fight goes on and maybe it's not going his way, he does not pack it in. He's a guy that's always looking to win the fight. The Miguel Baeza fight was his last win, and he was really, you know, the fight wasn't necessarily going his way early, but he comes back and beats Miguel Baeza by decision. The first round was really Miguel Baeza's round, and Santiago Ponzinibbio looked good in the second and third and wins the decision. So moving on down the line, next is Khamzat Chimaev at number 11. I already matched him up with Gilbert Burns. Next is number 12, Geoff Neal. I already matched him up with Sean Brady. And then next is Jingliang. Is really the only fight left. And just by default, we're going to match number 13, Jingliang, up with Muslim Salikhov, I think is how you pronounce his name. Jingliang coming off that dominant loss to Khamzat Chimaev. I don't know where he goes from here, really. Muslim Salikhov has really not, and I'm probably butchering his name. I don't remember how to pronounce it. He's not had a big step up in competition. And I think Jingliang is kind of that gatekeeper of the top 10. You know, we've seen, you know, him fight Khamzat Chimaev. That was a decent test. So I think by default, you have everyone else within the division matched up with each other. I think this is the fight to make. It's number 13 versus number 15. Loser, I don't know where they go from here. Really, honestly, if they win, it's not a massive win. But it can start, you know, kind of a streak. And Muslim has not lost since 2017, but he's not fighting the best competition. Jingliang at least has a big win over Santiago Ponzinibbio recently, back in January of this year, where he KO'd him, but Ponzinibbio was coming in off a long layoff. Before that, he has a loss to Neil Magny, so he's kind of a guy who's just trading wins and losses, and I think this is a very winnable fight for him, but I just think it makes the perfect sense when you look at the rankings, you look at where each guy is in his career, and this will be a great test for Muslim. If he can beat, you know, Jingliang, he can kind of move up that ladder similar to what Khamzat Chimaev is doing. Obviously, that's a much different scenario, but I think this is the fight to make. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about my potential welterweight matchmaking. Just to recap real quick, Kamar Usman versus Leon Edwards 2 for the welterweight title. Colby Covington versus Jorge Masvidal. Gilbert Burns versus Khamzat Chimaev, Vicente Luque versus Belal Muhammad, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Neil Magny, Sean Brady versus Geoff Neal, and Michael Chiesa versus Santiago Ponzinibbio, and Jingliang versus Muslim Salikhov, I think is how you pronounce it. Again, I'm probably butchering that. Let me know in the comments what you think. And I know you can switch a lot of these around. I know there's been some talk of Khamzat Chimaev versus Belal Muhammad. I would love that matchup as well. But let me know in the comments what you think. Don't forget to like the video, and thank you so much for watching.